to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Carla, if you'll call the roll, please.
Robert Mueller.
Here.
Dina Kreitler.
Here.
Jan Bronze.
Here.
Beth Caldwell. Stephanie Grumminger. Kelly Fowler. Laura Oliver.
Here.
Michael Hankins.
Here.
Kathleen Waltz.
Here.
Tom Couch. We have a quorum.
Thank you, Carla. Thank you all for attending. The first item of business is the approval of the agenda, which I think you have before you. Are there any additions to the agenda?
If there aren't any changes or additions, I move we approve the agenda.
Thank you, Kathy. Is there a second? Second. Mike, seconded. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Motion carries. You have before you also the minutes of the June 21st meeting. Take a quick look at those and see if there's any corrections that need to be made.
I have a correction.
Okay.
I don't believe I made the motion to appoint myself as vice chair.
And I could not hear, when I went back to listen, I
Yeah,
couldn't
hear
hear.
it.
I couldn't hear anything. And then I heard you say, thank you, Dina, for, and I was like,
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't think it was
I think you
me.
made the motion to approve. Yeah.
Maybe it was thank you, Dina, for agreeing to do it.
Yeah, I think that's what it was.
Very generous of you,
Yes,
Dina.
it was.
We only let that happen when you're not here at the
I
meeting.
kind of figured that. And I know I was a few minutes late, but.
Are there any other corrections to the minutes? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve as amended.
So moved.
Kathy?
Second.
John? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion carried. Are there any citizens to be heard today? Guess not, unless... Okay, we'll move on to Sanders' report, Director of Tourism.
Well, I think I'm officially at the 30-day mark, and it's been a very busy 30 days. I thought I would just hit on some of the highlights of the activities of the Welcome Center and my role in coordinating the staff and the facilities there, and also revamping and maybe redirecting the marketing program or marketing efforts for tourism in St. Genevieve. One of the first things that I undertook was program and communications review, a review of the marketing program and budget, and in preparation for moving forward with budget development with this committee and with the mayor and city administrator. So to start with, I began to look at our branding and our consistency and a refresh of our imagery. I had gone back to some of the notes, and my own feeling was also that some of our branding images were not as exciting as they could be, and maybe not as easy to take in at a glance in terms of long sentences instead of short, to the point, bulleted information that kind of grabs your eye and makes an impression. So I've taken some steps even in the very near term on kind of moving more into that direction, getting some brighter imagery into our ads and some shorter messages, and still maintaining our St. Genevieve logo and branding and consistency from that standpoint. I also took a look at the employee procedures, looking for truly a welcoming environment at the Welcome Center. I'm really trying to reinforce that and to model the type of behavior that we want to see, and going over that with each of the employees. They're all part-time employees, and they all have a really good perspective on things, but I think sometimes you get into maybe a little bit of a rut about things. And so we've been talking about ways to be very forthcoming and welcoming with everyone that walks through the door, and making sure that we set the stage for their very best possible experience in St. Genevieve. So we've been looking at consistency, approach, the depth at which they answer questions and make suggestions, and really trying to, whether it's over the phone for someone considering coming to St. Genevieve or in person, trying to encourage those people to look at us as having more than one day's worth of activities. We would like for you to be here several days if you can, and we certainly want you to know that there are a wide variety of activities for you to partake in while you're here in St. Genevieve. And so those are some of the things that we've been working on. I've also been contacting the festival committees. In particular, I've been working with the Downtown Renewal Program, and you'll be hearing a little bit more about that later. And also with the Jour de Fête Committee, and seeing what I can do to support their efforts. And then I've also met with quite a few of the merchants downtown, and talked to several of the wineries in terms of, what are we doing right in your opinion? Where could we maybe pick it up a little bit in your opinion? And so we've taken some early steps in that regard. And this is just a sheet that I'm going to pass around. I thought we would have hard copies of this, but you have to picture this as a full-size newsprint sheet. And this is 9 of the downtown, well actually 8 downtown plus the microtel advertised. And so the newspapers in Southern Illinois gave us the whole page and allowed us to put some advertorial information, basically some information about the Jour de Fête. So I'm just going to pass this around, and you can take a look and kind of see the direction that we're going, trying to get some free print coverage in addition to our paid advertising, and leveraging that anytime that we can.
This is the MZ?
Yes, this was in
thing, but
conjunction.
So you got to put something in addition to what they had, their ads?
Yes, yes. That's a good point, because if some of you at the table are familiar with the round robin advertising concept that Bev Dunsey had come up with, this was in addition to that, but it's very similar. It's basically dovetailing right into that ability to leverage the amount of space that we're paying for on a page with some additional coverage for either our events or other editorial that we can provide. And we're also looking at doing that moving forward with some of our other target publications. So I also have had several update discussions with the State Co-op Grants Management Office, walking through with them all of the aspects of our current grant program, which for them it just ended on June 30th, and moving forward, the aspects of our what they would consider our FY14 grant program through the state. And actually, in doing that, I discovered that there are some other programs that maybe we can take advantage of that are above and beyond those co-op dollars. So I'm pursuing that in addition to making sure that we meet all of the requirements of the co-op program. And so just briefly on the co-op program, their fiscal year ended June 30th, and so our final reports, the fourth quarter status report with all the attachments in addition to the year-end program report, are all due at the end of August. So right after Jour de Fête, that's what I'll be doing.
Will it look like we'll be recovering all the funds from the match this year?
We will recover everything that we spent up until June 30th. Whether we will spend down all of the dollars that were available to us, I haven't got the last line on that yet. But we should. I mean, there was nothing that was refused to us previously, and I don't anticipate there would be anything refused to us moving forward.
I think it's getting all the tear sheets and the canceled checks in to make sure that we can submit that by the end of August.
I actually made a midnight run to Farmington to the UPS overnight office with one. A couple of days after I started, it was my little introduction to making sure the state office gets what they want when they want it. So I know that we, on the last report, we're good. On the June 30th, I think that we'll be good. So state co-op grant, the new one started July 1st, and we'll be, pursuing all of all the marketing dollars that we can, in addition to they are funding our conversion study. So that will be happening in the next 3 months. So you'll hear more about that as we move forward. I also had an in-depth conversation with our webmaster about the website, and I had read in the minutes about concerns over updates to the website, and in particular that there was some concern that he was not willing to move forward with the contract, and I think we already reported at the last meeting that he was willing to move forward in an interim status, and he's confirmed to me that he's willing to move forward as long as things go well for both of us. And I said that is great for us because he's been extremely responsive. Every request that I've sent him or my staff has sent him has, even when I tell him this is not an urgent issue, it's usually done that day or within 24 hours. So I've experienced no problems. In that regard, he also gave me the kind of the back of the house information to check our Google Analytics and our Constant Contact online subscriptions. And I did find that we have 131 contacts who have opted in. If you're familiar with marketing, opt-in is what you want. And so we have 131 contacts who have opted in to receive information from us from St. Genevieve's visitor program. And so we'll be sending information out to these people at least on a monthly basis, if not more often. I don't want to overdo it because then you can wear out your good graces and they might opt out. But these 131 people date back to 2011, and they haven't been sent anything because I think Carla's name is on here, and there are a few other names that I recognize, and I know that they haven't received any emails. So. So I'll pass this around. It's not a formal report. It's just a piece of information that I discovered, and we're taking steps to address that. We'll be working with this committee to have some input on at least the marketing aspects of the FY14 budget for the city's FY14 budget. I have a draft of that, and we don't have a lot of leeway, but we have some leeway, and I would love to get your input on that process. And a lot of people have already given me a lot of their thoughts in that regard, and I do appreciate that. I'm also trying to, I mentioned, increase coordination with local businesses for advertising, also communicating with them about the advertising, letting them know when it hits. And that kind of ties in also to letting them know when groups or tour buses are in town. We've had problems with a couple of our downtown businesses in particular. I would say we're 98.5% of these people have email and check it on a regular basis. There are a couple of business owners who might have email, but they might not check it on a regular basis. And I think there's one that doesn't have an email address yet. So I feel strongly that it's important for them to move into electronic communications with our department, but I've also been taking steps to print out hard copies and talk to people about it and make visits, and they've appreciated that. But I do feel strongly that it's important to get up with the times with the email, and I don't think that we can maintain the extra steps that it takes for those few people who might have an email address but choose not to check it. Also, I want to, speaking of electronic media and online communications, one of my goals is to begin offering some workshops for businesses. Maybe they already have a Facebook page and they are hesitant to post updates, and so maybe they could use just a little refresher. Some people may not have had any experience with social media, but it's definitely where we need to be. And so I will be hosting some workshops. I could teach some of these workshops. I may bring in some guest speakers to help supplement, but I think it's important to to make sure that St. Genevieve overall is communicating with people the way they want to be communicated with, and 65% of people are making their decisions based on online research. So we don't want to be missing 65% of the people who are making their decisions about travel.
Question.
Yes.
How will you notify the business owners and that you're having a workshop? Will you do it email or?
Yes.
Okay.
And
So that they'll be able to attend your,
right. Oh, Bob's got a good point. I could put it in the newspaper too, but
okay.
yeah. Well, I think it's going to be, I mean, the business owners are a very finite group of people.
Right.
So it's not like I need to do an extensive advertising campaign.
Right.
That, you know, I'll send them an email and maybe put it in the newspaper. But if I haven't heard from you and I know that you need a little help, I'll probably be contacting you because I think that it's important.
Well, the reason why I asked that is because we've always had a problem with the restaurants, not with that, but most of the restaurants don't participate, and the
In these
tourists want to
in
know
workshops.
what's going on, and if anyone would be putting up a website, it would be maybe, you know, or Facebook would be maybe the restaurants.
Yeah, because they have everything to gain from it, certainly.
Right, and the first thing that, and Jan knows this because he has a restaurant that does too, but he knows that the guests that come into town, the first thing they're asking is about restaurants.
Yes.
You know.
Yes,
So-
and if there were any specials or anything like
Right,
that, what's on the
or,
menu?
You know, they're not used to the decor down here or the menus down here. I mean, the food is good, there's no problem. And to please, if you do that, and I say this with tongue in cheek also for wineries, because a lot of our guests eat at the wineries.
Yes.
Yeah. And it's hard to, you know, it's hard to include them because they're out there and we're in here. It doesn't seem to be a problem with the guests to drive 30 miles. Okay.
I think the other thing is the event organizers and their use of social media, you know, how to create an events page, how to promote your event on Facebook.
Facebook, yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's something that, it's the other group that we need to somehow rope into electronic marketing.
Well, and one easy way for them to do that is to just post something on our page, you know, comment on something. Like when I posted things about Moonlight Madness, people were, you know, liking it and reposting it on their page. That's a pretty easy way to, you know, you don't have to go through the time to find a graphic, upload it, post it. You can just like that and repost it or share it. And so I think certainly there's a lot of opportunities there.
I agree.
And the more coordinated we can be about it, the better off we're all going to be. Because a lot of the people who, I think the Visit St. Gen has over 2,000 likes, so some of those are obviously local people, but out-of-town people, or you know, people that may be from St. Genevieve and they're living in St. Louis and they like Visit St. Gen. If they see something on there about you know, Moonlight Madness and maybe, you know, Cave Winery or Kathy's Pour La Femme is having a sale or a special, you know, it's better for everyone if they're, you know, if they kind of get the big picture tied together easily for them. Okay, a couple of things on upcoming events, and I won't steal Beth's thunder, but there's one particular event that I've gotten very involved in, and that is the August 11th Gage Park announcement. This was an initiative originally of the St. Genevieve Downtown Renewal Program, and the city, of course, the mayor's office is 100% behind it, and it's a joint announcement went out last week to some of our legislators, and I believe it'll be in the paper this week, that on Sunday afternoon of Jerdafet weekend at 3 o'clock in the afternoon on North Main Street, where the telephone pole is with the water line marks on it, that green space just east of that telephone pole is where we're going to be having the announcement about Gage Park and commemorating 20 years since the crest of the flood, and it crested the first week of August, so it's very appropriate. And we've been going through reams and reams of newspapers and archives from the mayor's office, and a lot of people are sending in suggestions for out-of-town people who were very instrumental to help, and local people who were very strong leaders during that time. And we're hoping that we can get everyone together and announce the launch of the effort to create Gage Park, and certainly there will be some fundraising aspect to that, but it'll be nice to have this memorial to all of the hard work that went into saving St. Genevieve at that time, and then certainly recognizing the federal levy that protects us currently. Yes?
That piece of ground was where Dave Pinkley's mother's house was.
Oh, wow.
And she didn't move from there until the sandbag levee went right up against the wall of her house, and then, of course, the house had to come down. But yeah, he'll have stuff.
Yeah.
He'll remember stuff. Yeah, that was Lucy's house.
Wow, I did not know that. And Bill Nager is also, as part of that commemoration process, Bill Nager is updating his, the flood video that he prepared, kind of a documentary about the 1993 flood. And I think they're trying to nail down a time to have that shown at the Performing Arts Center at St. Genevieve High School. So watch for more information to come out about that. And so I've been trying to take advantage of opportunities to promote St. Genevieve businesses and area attractions at some of the events that we've had in town where, you know, it might be a baseball tournament, not your typical tourism crowd, but they're here. We may as well try to leverage that into some visits downtown or to the wineries. And so I've been setting up displays. I set it up at a large baseball tournament and made sure that there were St. Genevieve visitors guides on all of the concession stand windows. And then also I set up a display at the county fair, because a lot of people come into the county fair. Sometimes it's our residents, but sometimes they come from far and wide for the truck pull or the tractor pull or something like that. So we hope that they had an opportunity to pick up information and maybe even to, you know, to patronize some of our shops or restaurants while they were here.
I'd just like to comment, if you remember, we put together that one little sheet that was like restaurants and venue locations. Sandra took that, I think it was like on a Friday, I think, or Thursday. I mean, it was a very short time, adjusted it specifically for the baseball tournament, and then went a step further, put a display up out there, and I think and it ended up on a Saturday, I think. And so I think that was a really good move, because as you say, we've always said that when the schools and the baseball teams, when they bring people into town, those people end up usually eating someplace or shopping if they're not at the game all day. So I think that was a really good move. And as we go into the school year, we need to have the school start sending those kind of things out in their packets.
That's great, yeah.
To the teams that are coming in.
And it gives GPS coordinates, and now we have a list of GPS coordinates down at the Welcome Center too, because a lot of times people call in and they want those GPS.
What was that while we were there one day? Some guy called in and wanted the GPS coordinates for the ferry.
Right.
And we
Well,
actually...
you just drive up Main Street till you get to the water.
Well, we did find those, and I guess we've now got them on the eastern shore also.
We did, and I wanted to point out that it was not without a lot of help that I made that happen for the baseball tournament and updating these lists. The staff at the Welcome Center have been very helpful in tracking down some of this information and updating, and the street department helped me put up the display in such a way that it would not fall over on anyone. And so we've just had a lot of cooperation all the way around, and I really appreciate everyone's support. So.
The shop downtown yard signs that go up.
Yes. Oh, thank you for mentioning that. I had a lot of help with that too. Jack Dunsey and Bev, I guess from years ago when they had the antique show, they had these signs made that you probably have seen because we've been putting them out on most of the weekends. Signs made that say shop downtown this weekend with an arrow to the right or an arrow to the left. And so we put them at strategic locations for the baseball tournament and the county fair. And we'll continue to do that. We don't want to leave them out, 24/7. Then they blend in the background and you don't notice them so much anymore. But that was part of that really great support.
Yeah, I noticed those. Those are great, those little bandit signs.
Yes. kind of like similar to a retail, or excuse me, a real estate sign. And then I just wanted to also point out, I'm sure you have seen some of the coverage online or otherwise, but we've had several visits by the American Queen riverboat, and riverboat cruising is really making a comeback. I guess it kind of fell off after the hurricanes in New Orleans. But I'm going to pass around a couple of articles. This one is from AAA Southern Traveler. It's River Royalty. After a 4-year absence, the gracious American Queen is back on the Mississippi River. And if any of you have ever cruised, you know that when you go on a cruise line, you have shore excursions that you can choose from. And so there's a shore excursion option at the, we don't have any place for a riverboat to land here in St. Genevieve yet, but they've been landing in Chester, and then they have the ability to sign up for a shore excursion that puts them on a bus to come up to St. Genevieve and take the whole tour, and we provide step-on guide service with local guides, and then they have time to shop in the shops before they have to get back on the bus, back on the boat, and head down the river, up the river. And I'll pass this one around.
How long are they here?
Generally about an hour and a half to 2 hours, just depending on, you know, how long some other aspects of their excursion have taken.
Do they ferry over?
Yes, amazingly, yes. And I offered to, you know, reroute them to come up Highway 61 and go back the same way, but they decided they wanted to do the ferry with the bus. I thought after being on a riverboat, you know, being on a bus on a ferry wouldn't be quite as exciting as if you were, you know, on a land-based tour, but they said it was a real highlight for
The
them.
first group that came on was a little apprehensive. when
Yes,
they put-
well,
But I mean, I think the ferry.
Bus is bigger than the ferry.
1,000
Yeah.
pounds, and the ferry, and the bus is about 30,000 pounds.
We checked that out to be sure.
Yeah.
The ferry can handle how much, sorry?
I think 80,000 pounds.
80? Oh, okay.
Are they typically senior citizens? No?
It was kind of a mix, I would say, more tending towards that demographic, but there were a few mother and daughters on the cruise, I guess you would say, and on the excursion, but.
Pretty
a lot of
expensive,
people-
isn't it?
I'm sorry?
I mean, the river.
Yes.
It's way expensive.
Way expensive. It
It's a
can
lot
be
more
$5,000
than-
to $10,000 where
Yeah.
you can go on the ocean for less than $1,000.
Yeah.
Which is why it's important to get those people in town and get them walking around, because if they're on that boat, they have money to spend.
And
They
please
just
offer
say-
to ship
Or
their
they spend it
purchases
all.
for them.
No, they still have some,
No, they
trust
still
me.
have.
Ship the purchases for them.
And the people from Australia were really fun.
Yes.
That was a really nice group that showed up, and I had quite a few of them in, and I didn't, until they all started talking to each other, I didn't realize the people were from Australia, but then you hear this accent, and you're like, what's going on here? Because that wasn't in anything I knew in
Right.
advance, but they were just lots of fun people.
It's interesting, the American Queen, there's two boats plying the river. One of them, I think, is called the Mississippi Queen, and the other one's the American Queen. And the Mississippi Queen was supposed to dock at Chester, but ended up not doing it. But the American Queen they have a separate excursion company with 4 buses, and it follows down the river or up the river. And in Chester, they had a step on, or hop on, they call hop on, hop off tour of the town, and they had 3 buses just continuously
Circulating the
circulating
town.
in the town, and they used their 4th bus to come to St. Genevieve. And after the first tour, Sandra and I went over to Chester and met with their tourism advisory committee, because they were doing a lessons learned. And it was a very good day. I mean, I think we established some good relationships with Chester, stopped by their visitor center.
All volunteers. It would be like if everybody on this committee was, you know, staffing a house or talking to someone on the bus or hopping on and off, you know.
They sent their tour guides on the,
Right.
over here.
Oh, they sent their tour, right, they sent their tour guides from Chester up here on the excursion bus to see what St. Genevieve was all about. So that was kind of neat. So we made some new friends in Chester and dropped some brochures off while we were there. Okay, let's see. So upcoming events, promoting St. Genevieve. And then just, you know, anytime you start something new, probably one of the first things that you do is a operational review and kind of a SWOT analysis. And so if you've been by the visitor center lately, you'll know that we've been doing a lot of sprucing up inside and out. The street department has been helping us with dead trees and bringing in mulch, and we thought we had some football players lined up, and Bob helped us out because the football players were a no-show, and Bob actually helped tidy up our mulch situation in the front of the building. And so we've been doing a lot of that kind of thing, and we'll continue to do that. One of the things, you know, it just sort of, it falls under the category of probably, again, what you get used to seeing and dealing with, and I'm determined that we will have lights that work, and we already have resolved the acoustics situation with, thanks to many hours on the part of Don Rapp and volunteering to come down and figure out our speaker situation in the Welcome Center. And now we have figured it out, and we have the high-quality speakers that were mounted in the ceiling from back, you know, before the building was renovated and the wall was taken out. The speakers are still in the ceiling, and Don was able to connect those speakers so that we now have a volume, because Bob knows if you're standing there with 35 people from a bus, people absorb a lot of sound, and we had people, can you turn it up, can you turn it up, and it was at the highest it would go. And so it's been like this for many years. Really, it would date back to the renovation of that building. One flat screen on the wall with 2 speakers pointed at the floor. But now that's not the way it is anymore. We've got these other speakers working, and I took out 24 non-functioning lights out of the track light system. And again, the street department guys came down and got on the ladder and took these things down for me, and Marzuko Electric has offered to evaluate those with no service charge if I would have them you know, taken up there. So we did that last week, and I talked to them this morning, and they are in the process of evaluating those so we can find out if any of them can be salvaged. Maybe the transformer works, but we have to get a new light or something. And I'd also like to see if maybe there's a possibility to transition over to an LED system, which would be more cost effective to run, and you wouldn't have to replace these high temperature bulbs as frequently.
The other thing we talked about at one time was in the display cases. Can we ever get like an LED light in those somehow that can shine down? It's pretty dark in there.
It's very dark in there, and we have complaints about it all the time. That's the other thing that I'm working on.
But maybe if all those lights on the ceiling work, they won't seem so
Yeah,
anymore.
we can point them in the display
Either
case.
that, or
worse.
there, you know,
Yeah.
are there tops on all those display cases? Maybe we could open them up a little bit so that, as
A
Beth
little light
said-
bulb in there.
Yeah, as Beth said, even the light from the ambient light.
They all were lit, is my understanding, until the building was, quote, renovated and all the cases were moved around. And if you look inside some of those cases, you can still
They
see
have,
the
yeah, Jan was
wires
down
are
there
in there.
yesterday, we were looking at that. So whether it's the old lights that we can reattach, I think when they moved the cases, they had to unattach them, obviously. And whether those, you know, new lines can be run, or if it's just more cost effective to drop a light bulb in through the ceiling. As you can imagine, these kind of things take hours and hours and hours, and I don't always have hours and hours, so sometimes I'll work on it for a couple of hours and then it's got to be put on hold for a while, but I'm determined to get all the parts and pieces working that should be working in there. So, and we've had email and telephone issues, and that causes you some consternation and downtime too, and Carla and Sue and Pam have been very helpful, as well as our IT support was very helpful on the phone and working through some of those. So I hope I've been very responsive to everyone who's reached out to me over the last 30 days, but if there was a time there when you didn't get an email from me for about 3 days, then that's what it was.
You might want, it's also, you can't really send anything that's over a 5 meg file, because it'll get sent back to you. So it's just something that you, if you're sending, I know when I send pictures, I have to be very careful of that.
Right. And so if anyone is sending large files like that, we have a Dropbox account. So if you're not familiar with Dropbox, it's you know, like having a flash drive out on the cloud somewhere. So open a Dropbox account and send me an invitation to view your file, and we can do it that way too. So you don't have to come down with
It's a
a
free service.
file burned to CD or something. And then,
Sandra?
oh, yes.
I never did get that. You had sent me one email to Pam and I, asking if we had gotten another one from you, and we didn't, or I didn't anyway, but then I never got anything after that.
A new one after that?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll make a note to send that to, I think, I have to remember what that was. Was it about Thursday or Friday?
The double down, the picture of the page for the double down advertising thing.
Oh, okay. This is what that was.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so that was Thursday night or Friday. Do you want that as a file?
No, that's okay.
I
I
was
just-
doing a test, you're right, I was doing a test.
Okay, I didn't
so-
know if you had resent it to
Yeah.
everyone or not, but, okay.
Good to find out. In that regard, let's see. Well, so facility reviews, process reviews, marketing reviews, oh, SWOT analysis, that was the other thing I mentioned. Of all of our many wonderful strengths, I think that we have lots of reasons to attract visitors. I think that maybe packaging and communicating about those, we could fine-tune this a little bit and really talking about, as I've said, that we have multiple days of itineraries to offer you here. It's a multifaceted jewel that is St. Genevieve. One of the true weaknesses that I see, once we brush up our communications, and I think we can get from here to there with a little extra effort, but one of the real weaknesses that I see is transportation. And Bob mentioned that when we were in Chester, they have this bus, service that they can circulate around town and people can just get on and off. I'm going to pass this around. This happens to be for Forest Park Trolley in St. Louis. It's just a continuously cycling trolley. They have two of them, so they go in two different directions. But just as a, FYI, this is one community doing it. So I think that we have two transportation issues. One is it would be helpful to have some sort of transportation, a shuttle or something, moving around St. Genevieve downtown, at least on the weekends and during special events. Maybe I should say at least during special events, and maybe next on the weekends, and then maybe we could one day graduate to regular transportation. So the other issue is that as Martin pointed out, it's a 30-mile round trip, or was that you, Mike, that pointed out? It's a 30-mile round trip to go to the wineries from downtown. Okay, sorry, it was Mike.
more like
And
40.
so I think that it's important for us to have some sort of transportation options open to people. This may not happen right away, but I think it's something that we should collectively work towards in finding solutions. I know there have been brainstorming type discussions on this in the past. I know that probably everyone recognizes that it is an opportunity for improvement. But I think maybe that we should see what our options are in terms of moving forward, even in a small way, because there used to be a limo service, and that's no longer available, and there used to be cab service, and there really isn't a commercial service that you can call for that. We do have a tour company based out of Cape Girardeau that does winery tours, and I've been in touch with them to see if maybe we could schedule more tours, to be bringing people downtown into the wineries. But I think that that's something that we should really look at, and maybe if anybody's interested in this topic in general, let me know, and we can add a committee to our list of committees and have a transportation kind of a focus group or working committee. So I think those are the highlights. Sorry it took so long, but it's just been pretty busy.
Does anyone have any questions of Sandra at this point?
There's a few other things I'll cover later on, but
No, thank you very much. Let's go into old business, an update on the National Park Service study. Martin, you want to talk about that?
Well, actually, the one, Bob initiated it by sending an email
to Sharon Niles, and she responded by saying that they make progress, the draft is complete, and it's being reviewed, but they didn't know, given the sequestration, whether they would be able to travel for the public hearings. And then, like, I don't know, 45 minutes later, it's the next day or something, she gets back and said, oh, by the way, we're going to be able to do that now. And they don't have a date, but they're getting ready to schedule the local public hearings to review the draft.
I think one of the things that we as a town have got to do is to figure out how we're going to push forward with this. They'll come out with a list of alternatives, but it'll be Congress that'll make decisions as to whether or not we'll have a national park site. So we are going to have to figure out how we're going to marshal our forces between the city and the community to push this forward.
Yeah, we did have the newly elected congressman visited the county commission, and we were invited to attend, so I did bring it up at that time. His response was curious in that he asked, well, is this locally driven? And I said, you would have a hard time finding anyone in the city of St. Genevieve that does not support this. And he said, well, okay, I would go along with it if it's locally driven. He said, but he told me some story of a national park effort in another part of the state that was forced upon them, was the impression I got. So I think, I don't think he's going to be our champion necessarily, but I think generally he was supportive, and we know Senator Blunt is, so it's just a question of keeping focus on them to
I mean,
get
in
their
the
support
past,
when
we've
the time
sent
is right.
people even to Washington in costume to talk this issue, and we'll have to figure out how to do this in the future.
Why would it not be? Why would
Well,
the downside of it?
first of all, the National Park Service is not the most loved federal agency among conservatives. And some of it has to do with the fact that they tend to regulate the use of private property within designated parklands. The other issue is the one that the Park Service brought up. So if you create another park, you create another operating expense for an agency that has a limited budget to start with. So there's always that consideration.
And the fact of funding right now is a difficult issue, just in general. Okay. Next item was removal of old tourism signage or visitor signage.
Well, it was reported to me from the Public Works Department that they completed that. Bob just emailed me this morning and said, I went around and there are a couple of them that are still up, but I think they ought to stay up.
I think that, yeah.
And so he suggested we declare that the mission accomplished. So we'll no longer be reporting on that. Well, except
we're
that
getting better. It's only a year.
I know.
We got it done though.
I think I reported before, some of those signs blew down.
Yeah.
And the sign maker has a remedy for that, and so he's going to reinstall the ones that were damaged beyond repair, and has a bracket that will support it properly so that they won't. When I asked him about it, I said, I've used this material forever. He said, but never on a sign that size. So he thinks the size of the sign catches the wind and racks it, and eventually works through the bolt.
So is that going to be done pretty soon?
If I don't know, Sandra, did you email me that?
Yes, I think he said that
This
he would
week.
commit to this week, yes.
Okay, the other issue is kind of a sideline of tourism, was downtown trees. Any update on the committee that's working that issue?
Well, we had a field trip last Thursday night, and we went around. We made a decision about every tree. Now, Katie with the Extension Service and the guy from Citizens Electric, the certified arborist,
Tom.
huh?
Tom.
Tom, are going to advise us on species selection, but in terms of, you can use a tall tree here and a medium tree here, you need a short tree here, that evaluation was done with their advice by the committee. One of the efforts that we will be undertaking is to, where we can, instead of trying to force a tree to grow in the sidewalk, if there's available property, asking the private property owner to allow the city to put a tree, to donate a tree to them on their grounds. I've spoken to one of the property owners. We kind of ran into him on the street that night, and he seemed in favor of that. Yes, I think Citizens Electric will go along with replacing the trees they used to have. But if we can get the trees, better growing conditions, they're more likely to survive. The other thing that we discovered that night was I've had some complaints about the size of the trees we've been putting in, wanting bigger trees. Katie and Tom advised exactly the opposite and pointed me to this nursery in Ellsbury where they have a technique for growing the trees that aren't in a root ball, and so you actually get a tree that's got live active roots that is more likely to grow. He said, but the smaller you plant it, the more likely it is to thrive and survive. So I'm going to have to compromise, or kind of come up with a compromise between those who like instant shade and the advice of the experts, which is smaller is better.
And I think part of it is maybe sequential plantings, that you don't have them all going in at the same time and all.
Well, we can't afford that. I mean, it's in most of the places where we're planting, we're going to have to over excavate and create a structured earth environment for the plants to grow, and no more 2x2 holes. And so each tree is going to be expensive, and we're going to have to budget something for it. And we don't have enough money to do what we're doing. Come up with another $10,000 a year is going to be difficult. But it's just something the board's going to have to establish as a priority, and where it falls in our list of priorities. And obviously, doing nothing is not the answer.
Question. On my walk up here, I noticed there were several young men working on the light posts on Market Street. Have you addressed the issue of the lights that are not burning at night?
I didn't. We fix them when we hear about them. Which ones aren't burning at night?
Well, there's one or two right there on 3rd Street in front of the restaurants. As you walk around town, there's a couple in front of the courthouse that aren't on.
I'll take
You need to walk
an
around.
inventory.
Yeah, and I'd say there's probably, of the 93 lights, I'd say there's probably at least maybe 15 that aren't on.
No kidding.
Yeah,
It's usually just a bulb.
that's all it is. And I will tell you that they used to buy the bulbs from Marzuko, and they were like $50. If you just go up to Home Depot or Lowe's, you can get them for $12. Yeah.
I'm not going to comment on that.
Yeah, right.
Local, stay local.
Well, that's extreme. That's like 5 times what the cost of a bulb is. And your maintenance people, all they got to do is, they're out during the day, and you designate which ones, and, put a pink ribbon on it or something, and
Yeah,
the next day, they just change the bulb.
Usually somebody just calls in and says the bulb's out.
Yeah.
We go
But
fix it. But nobody does an inventory after hours.
That's exactly it. The only reason why I know that is because walking back from the music festival, I noticed that on 3rd Street, there's quite a few of them out.
Thank you.
I'm sorry. And it just, it's a bad showing, that your light is on.
Okay.
While we're kind of on trees, I would assume it is the street department that has been replacing the sidewalk. So I just want to say thanks, because they look really nice. And they look a little different right now, but I'm sure in a couple of years, it'll all look the same, and they look really nice. So they've been doing a really good job with that.
And I also want to say that in all the towns I've ever been in, the street department sweeps these streets a lot. and that's what people look at, that there's no trash in the streets.
I agree.
And I mean, they really do go around and sweep all the streets, and especially in the downtown area, and that really impresses people, that they say, boy, there's no trash in the streets.
Well, you should contact your alderman and thank them for making that decision.
Well, that's.
It wasn't a given that we would have a street sweeper.
Yes.
I thought the scrubby Dutchman did pretty good.
Yes. I mean, I know after every event, they really do a good job, but there's nothing going on this week, and they usually, I mean, I saw them out this morning. And they're, you know, and they do a really fabulous job on that.
Okay, anything else on that? The maintenance conversion of the website, I think we touched on that.
I did, and the updates are ongoing, and I'm going to send an email invitation to the Electronic Media Committee, which I understand to be Dina, Steph Grumminger, and Beth, to get together and talk about next steps and so on with the website. In particular, now that we have maintenance figured out, we need to talk about how to accomplish some of the other goals that were originally going to be part of letting a new contract, and that has mainly to do with having a mobile version of the website pop up when you look at it, and maybe streamlining some of the information that's out there. We've done a lot of updates, as I said, on the existing content that's out there, just a lot of shops that, you know, have come and gone in business and just hadn't been updated. So we've done a lot of that recently, but I'd like to get together with you guys and talk about next steps.
Visitor guide reprint, Jan, or
Yeah, Kelly and I met Sunday, and we'll probably have it ready to go to the designer by the end of the week.
we had that in this year's budget, and we have 2.2 months to get that all accomplished. Is that still feasible to get that printed in this year's budget? No
Yes.
problem. Okay, good.
On the, did you guys just update all the general information on there? Or are you updating the map too?
Oh, sure.
Okay, because
So what were the boxes
Chamber's on a
that
different
Darren
street. I'm not sure that's
brought in the day that I was there?
changed.
The boxes that the guys brought into the Welcome Center?
Yeah, visitor guide.
Oh, the day you were there? Yes, those are the visitors' guides. I don't think I have one with me, but those are the visitors' guides.
Okay.
There you go.
So how many do you have now?
We have several boxes left. It will definitely last us through the end of the fiscal year for the city, and by the time the new ones come back from the printer, should be just about right.
So you won't be needing to print those next fiscal year?
Not in FY 14 for the
Yeah, but then
city.
the following year.
We'll get it paid, we'll get it printed and paid for in this year's
year.
budget,
Well,
yes.
that's what I think that's important to do, because we did get that approved this year.
Yes.
Yeah, because it might not make it next year.
Yep.
How many are going to be printed?
I'll have to go back to the original and look at it. Like, in other words, are you suggesting maybe we print fewer so that so that we update it more frequently, or what was the genesis of the question?
Just, well,
Idle curiosity.
idle curiosity, yes, but maybe there would be some wiggle room for printing more or printing fewer.
I can shed some light on that.
Okay.
Back 6, 7 years ago, we were going through about 100,000 a year. And because of the online availability, that's dropped to about 60,000 a year, 60 to 70. And we have, printing business changed a little bit, but the setup costs have gone down because of digital technology.
Mm-hmm.
So it used to be to our advantage to order just a whole bunch of them and get that volume discount. But that, the turnover in commerce here, that makes these things obsolete so fast. So now we're in a better position by getting smaller quantities and updating them more frequently.
So smaller being 75 to 50,
Yeah, 50 to
something like
60.
that?
And then a subsequent reorder of maybe 20 to fill a gap before you redesign.
One of the
with
things-
some updates.
One of the things we had on there was a date on them now. I don't know if you-
We've had that on there for always.
Okay.
That's all.
Once I think you get that finished up and on order, we need to start talking about distribution again, how we're going to do it, where we're going to do it, sort of thing. Okay. Thanks, Sean. The other thing that we had always talked about, I think you mentioned that if they get out of date, we had talked before about every quarter doing a look at the online version and maybe updating that so that we had one that's always current within a quarter.
And the one that's online is more updated than the print one. We've been keeping the online directories more up to date than the online brochure, knowing that we're about to print a new brochure. But
It was something we had discussed over a year ago about doing quarterly looks at that. Okay. Development of the 2014 calendar.
Photoshop.
Did
You're
you
having a private conversation. Excuse me.
I'm not, no.
That's kind of a placeholder, but in terms of calendar, our goal is to have hard dates for all of the signature events for 2014 by November. And so we've also been taking steps to get more of our events online, just current events online. But for the 2014 calendar, committee heads will be reaching out to them to encourage them to set their dates for 2014 by November.
We put together a little form that doesn't have everything in it, because a lot of them don't have all the details, but dates, you have a website, contact point, that sort of thing.
Excuse me, Bob. Did we miss the item 2013 conversion study?
Oh, I guess, yes.
Yeah.
So I touched on that during my talk about the co-op grant. We have co-op grant dollars for marketing, and we have been approved co-op grant dollars specifically for a conversion study. And so to do that, and this was not my doing, but to do that, they had to do the bid process, and the low bid was the one that was selected and submitted during the grant process. So that will be the company that we'll be following up with for the conversion study, and they are a specialist in these conversion studies. It's a phone survey to previous guests to find out how they heard about St. Genevieve, et cetera, et cetera. And so that should be happening sometime in the next few months.
Well, I think we actually had two of them. There was the $2,500 that was in the budget for this year's. Stephanie had talked about doing a 400-person conversion study, and then we got approved for the bigger one in the match.
Right.
And I think what you talked about the other day is not doing that small one, but doing the big one.
With a professional company. I don't see much point to doing two conversion studies. I think it would just confuse people. Which conversion study are you talking about? And I'm sure that probably the reason that that other one was discussed was, what if we didn't get it approved through the state grant process? Then we would have had a fallback position. But since we were approved, with the committee's blessing, I guess, my recommendation would be that we do one conversion study, and it be the larger study and comprehensively done by a specialist.
And the budget was roughly what?
8,000.
And the company is?
I don't remember the name of the company off the top of my head.
Is the individual's name? Is that right?
No,
Like
it's not
John
an
H. Scott or
individual,
something?
it's a company.
Yeah, I know.
Like
There's a.
H2H or something like
Okay,
that.
okay.
If you're interested in the specific name, call me after.
No. I just wanted to know if it was the same one that a lot of the other DMOs use. Was it recommended by the state?
I can't say.
Okay.
But they approved the grant request knowing that that was the company that had been selected.
Do you need a vote for that?
I don't know.
To skip the 225 and go for the 8?
I mean, we can advise to
Yeah.
do that, and that just takes a motion and a second.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. So as an advice, so she has backup. That's why she did it.
So.
I make a motion that we do the larger study and do not do both studies.
Second.
Second, Kathy, any other discussion?
That was Beth.
It was
Oh,
bad.
was that Beth? You were nodding your head there.
That's why she can't get the minutes right, Bob.
Well, Beth was hiding behind you there. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried. Okay, thanks for bringing that to my attention, about being in order. Any other old business? Moving on to new business, report on the American Queen excursions. I think we've covered that during Sandra's comments. We've had 3 to date. I think there was a third one last week. And we have one in September, I believe.
Yes.
That's coming up.
4 altogether.
The last time, the second one, we had one of the vice presidents of the American Queen on our tour and 2 representatives of that excursion company on the tour. So they came over to check us out.
I sent them a little follow-up letter to say how much we love riverboats in St. Genevieve and how much we loved having their guests. And if they ever wanted to schedule any other riverboat tours for St. Genevieve or direct tours, to please let us know.
Why don't we make a sign for the Welcome Center? This is going to be a habit. It says, "Welcome American Queen," red, white, and blue sign.
Ooh, what a great idea. We could do that for different kinds of groups.
Yeah.
Almost like when you come into the airport and you're,
Interchangeable.
right.
Yeah.
I know St. Genevieve Community Access Television has been good to help put up welcome signs on their little building
Yeah.
out here.
Yeah.
But you're right, I mean, those are always,
At the park board meeting last night, Sommer Lugate, who's a park board member, after the meeting, he was just going on and on about the riverboat stopping. There've been 3 of them, and what a wonderful thing it is, and I don't know what his involvement was, if any, but it certainly got his attention.
well, I know what his involvement was. Part of the tour was a tour of the church, which they requested, and a concert by Al Kaiser. And Sommer's son, William, has been learning to play the organ and works on, and Sommer was there at several of presentations.
That's great. Since I covered the other 3 bullet items, the American Queen, the events, the commemoration at Flood Park, I now passed out the visitor center data. So that normally would have come previously, yeah. So you have in front of you the traditional data that the committee wanted to see, I think, every month on this one. So you have Welcome Center visitors through the end of June on the first bar charts there. And as you can see, our year-to-date, our gap is shrinking. I think in July, we will have broken even, and from this point forward, we hope that we'll be climbing into the positive numbers again. But we're down to a negative 2%. And then, of course, you're used to seeing these numbers, but this breaks it down by the groups for 2013 by month compared to previous years for those same months. You can see that in 2011, we had a really high spike in May, and this is one of those things, yeah, school groups. But this is one of those things that we'd like to do a better job with moving forward in terms of reaching out to those school groups to make sure we're getting our fair share of all the school groups out there that are doing tours. And I know that there was a cutback in budgets for a lot of schools, and so maybe everybody's school group tours are down. But I also want to do a concerted effort to reach out to those teachers and administrators who are planning events and see if we can get more students here. Because if we can get the students here and have a great time, anecdotally, we hear people all the time who say, I came here in 4th grade and I've wanted to come back, or I brought my family back. Students bring their parents with them to come back, and students come back as adults. So it's to our advantage to have as many as possible. And then we've got adult group visitors and students separated out. So you've got the total groups and then adults versus students. And in the month of June, our adult group visitors picked up based over the previous month, and not quite to the point that it was last year, but we're steadily making gains. And then the other sheet that you have, this is kind of a sampling of data from a couple of different types of businesses in the downtown area. This is reported in aggregate, but Sue pulls this information together based on several of the restaurants and then several of the shops in the downtown area. So you can see that, for instance, sorry. Yeah. So under the shops, for instance, you have for the total of the second quarter, 1,705. So that's not quite what it was at 2012, but I mean, we have every reason to believe that things will begin picking up with some increased exposure on the part of our advertising efforts. So these are some types of data that we're just beginning to compile and refine. We may even be looking at refining the data further, because there might be an opportunity to kind of clean it up for some of the businesses that might not be there anymore.
Well, you know what, when we started this was the sampling of 8 downtown restaurants, 8 downtown businesses, and then there's another chart that'll come out for the next month on the B&Bs. And we started with 8 in each of those, but unfortunately, the numbers have dwindled in some of those businesses. The hotel closed, the restaurant, Big Field Cafe closed. So now we're, I think, just down to 6. And in terms of shops, we may be even less than that. So we're going to have to go back, and we try to always make this apples to apples. And I know on one of these, Sue has went back and taken like the hotel restaurant out. In terms of the data, we're going to have to.
I mean, the historic data, you factored it out, so you had.
So we're comparing apples and apples, and so I think we've got to take a look at that list. There's a point in time when it gets too small. Well, just from it's kind of like with the state data. Unless there's 5 people in the group, we don't, as the public, can't see it, and so we'll try to always maintain that same thing here. So we're going to relook at these numbers as we go forward as to what's included. But this was really a way to try to track those entities that are downtown that get more of the tourist trade than, say, out at Point Base and places like that.
Well, and based on what Bob just said, in 2013, we're still looking at the data for the restaurants and trying to decide how we want to portray that. So.
The other thing I'd make a comment on this is these are always a kind of a month late, because you don't pay your taxes until after you have, after the end of the month. So these are the data, this is the data reported to the state in each of these months, but the actual, it would.
Yeah, they still got a week before they have to have it in.
On the
quarter,
yeah.
on this quarter for 1705. Nobody has, nobody, I mean, unless you pay monthly, and not many people pay monthly anymore because it's the cut of paperwork, you pay quarterly, so it doesn't have to be until the 31st of July.
But I think
So that's why that number of 1705.
The 303 is low for that reason, and the 1705 is low for that reason.
Yes. It's low because of that.
Well, these are the reports that we're only going to look at on a quarterly basis, so we have until the August meeting to kind of work through this.
Yeah.
To make sure that we got all the data in. But I just wanted to point out that there's really a time lag here in all of this data. So, you know, some people said, well, I see this for January. I didn't have that kind of January. Well, it was really December data or actual sales that are getting reported in tax that shows up in January. One of the things that I think that we'd like to see also is pays per sales. And I think there's some charts available for that. That's on a monthly basis thing.
One of the other things that I was taking a look at in terms of staffing in particular is I would have thought that the busiest day of the week would be a Saturday, but the busiest day of the week is actually a Friday, which surprised me. I guess a lot of people, are coming into town. Maybe they're taking a long weekend. I just thought that was interesting.
It's one of the things that they went back and did a review of last year, and then we set the charts up for this year so you can track the week and see when we're getting visitors into the Welcome Center.
Friday's the big day.
Well, I think there's something you have to keep in mind about that, is that a lot of that has to do with B&B guests. Saturday, they're at the winery.
Right? And we also seem to have a lot of people who come through St. Genevieve on their way to someplace. Like they might be going to Memphis for the weekend or St. Louis. They're from Arkansas and they're stopping by here. Billboards are working. Stopping by here on their way to somewhere else.
One of the things I've noticed this year, I mean, there's no data to back it up, but it seems like there's a lot more kids in strollers this summer than I'm used to seeing downtown. Has anybody noticed that?
I have. We see quite a few people, but I don't have something to compare it to. I guess you would be out and about and probably notice more of that.
Just observation,
Mm-hmm.
which is good.
Absolutely.
Okay. Upcoming events for August. Beth, I think you put out the...
Yeah, Carla copied them for me this time, thanks. The one thing that didn't make it on there was the thing for Sunday, August 11th for the Gage Park, but I'm going to send a second email out to everybody for the month. Just, can I use your description that went on, that you emailed me for Bo, that went on the
Absolutely.
website? Okay.
Yes.
So I'll just email that to the list I have.
One of the things, these classic cruiser car shows, are those all at McDonald's or where do they?
Yeah.
McDonald's, yeah.
Do they ever do a cruise through town?
Like the Great Race.
Well, kind of, I just remember as a kid here, you kind of went up to the, I forget what it was called, the Tasty Freeze or something, and then you went through town, I went up to the park and came back. And I've been in other towns that have had classic car cruises, and they would actually drive through town as a parade. It's kind of like our tractor parades, but you just do it with the cars. I didn't know if we could maybe ask them to do that some night.
I know
when they do one of these.
the last one went out Highway 61, got on the interstate, went back south to 32 and came back into town to McDonald's.
It'd be nice if we could get them to kind
So,
of.
I don't know
go
that they
through
did
town.
it downtown, but they
Yeah.
did it on the, like a big old roundabout.
Well, the information I had said it was at the KC Hall. So that's what I put on there. Is
I
that
mean,
not
they get-
correct?
There's signs
Yeah.
up at the McDonald's with the
Oh,
classic.
McDonald's.
Isn't there usually one at KC on Georgia that weekend?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think,
I think this classic car should.
There might be
Those
two
are-
different events.
I think
Well,
it is.
I
because
think
the
it
ones that
is.
Cousin McDonald's
this one
coming out.
is pretty annual. They've done it every year at the KC Hall.
Right, but there's another group that's been doing, I think they've had 4 of them scheduled this year.
Gene Grine, I think, does that.
Is this one
Does he?
at St. John KC or Blue
So it's
Top
Gene?
KC?
Oh, stop out.
That's what I could
Yeah.
have said. so I couldn't-
Okay.
Did anybody see the antique car cruise
Yes.
about 2 weeks ago?
This-
Those are out.
It's a shame they didn't announce they were coming through.
They were from
here.
all over the country.
I mean, that's a major race. They had a big deal down at Cape. That was their destination. I think they came from Washington, Missouri the night before, and then had stayed there and then came down here.
My son sat in our front yard and watched them all go by. He was just, his eyes are like this big.
Oh, they were fantastic.
Loves it.
Yeah. But I mean, we didn't get a chance to promote that.
No.
Were they spending the night in Cape? Do you think that's why? Oh,
But,
okay.
yeah.
Are you guys getting, Sandra, are you and your group down there getting a lot of questions on Zertifet? Because I know our office is getting a ton.
Yes.
And
They're still accepting.
I have no information, none. And then
It's
the
on their
number-
website.
Yeah, and when I was on their website last Friday, it was down, so I don't know if they were updating some information.
I bet they were updating because there was a meeting Thursday night, and I
Okay.
know there were some updates, so.
And the number that
Why would the website go down? Because you're making updates.
and it just said page unavailable on Friday.
That's
and
not because of updating. That's not how it works.
I'm not sure, but
Did you go to whatever the website address was before, they lost it. So there's a new website address.
uh,
How'd they
Where's the
lose
new
it?
one?
They didn't renew, and somebody snatched it up, and now they want like $60,000 for it or something.
Huh.
It's one of the hijackers that got it.
well, that website was like this long anyway, but they probably,
So I guess that's
Say Genevieve.com.
So I would.
I think that's what it
assume.
was, though. I'll look at that.
Maybe they-
But
sure.
I guess my question was the number that, for booth space, their calls are not being returned. So, and this was a lady yesterday, because she has sent in her application money, and she has not had a confirmation. The number, she keeps leaving messages, nobody's returning her. She's a food vendor, and that's the only number I have. So I did give her the visitor center number yesterday. I don't know if she called you.
We've
but
gotten a lot of calls. I don't know if it was this particular person, but
she was just kind of worried because she didn't know if it had been accepted. It hadn't cleared the bank yet, and I'm not getting anywhere either. And I don't have any information. That's kind of why I was like, well, I'm not quite sure what to tell them.
I know that, I was at their meeting last week, and I know that the lead person for interacting with the food people, I think, is Jamie. And then the other vendors is, by and large, Brenda. I think, yeah.
So Jamie's the one doing the food vending? Because I know she was on vacation. She just probably got back.
So maybe that
but
was what was going on,
I
yeah.
don't know. But they did extend their applications?
They're currently still accepting, especially craft booths. And just as a general point of interest, the parking lot of the old Bank of St. Genevieve building that's now part of the Bolduc properties, they're allowing local not-for-profit organizations, student groups that want to do fundraisers. For $25, they can set up a booth there on that parking lot by contacting the Bolduc House.
For $25?
$25, they could do a fundraiser during.
Where is that?
First bank parking lot.
Right down here, the parking lot for the Bank of St. John, what used to be Bank of St. John building.
Do we know what their regular booth fee is?
It's $125 for one booth, and a lot of people take 2 or 3 booths.
Okay. Is that per day or for the
That's
show?
just the booth
Okay.
I think that's the without electric price, and then electric is another
Yeah, I
There's
thought,
another fee on top of that. At least a couple of years ago, that's how it used to be. They may have changed things.
Do you have any?
we do, yeah. You
Can
know
you
what,
send me
I'll
one?
just fax you what we've got, which is,
That's
it's off the
fine.
website, but it's the forms and
Off of the
information.
Certified
website that's in that
website?
article,
Okay, I'm
yeah.
gonna check that because it wasn't up Friday, so.
Yeah.
Is
I
it up
just checked
to-
it, it's up.
Okay. .com. Okay. Okay.
But sometimes when people call in, they might not have internet access, so we've been sometimes faxing or mailing the forms to them.
Okay. I just wanted to kind of give that lady, I told her I would
Oh, yeah.
find out some information and get back with her as soon as I could, because she was just kind of worried about her fee.
I think we talked about the commemoration at the flood park, establishing a work session for the budget, marketing. When is your budget due?
Well, I would just like to get this group together sometime in the next 2 weeks, maybe, and do a work session, and then that way we'll have one kind of early on, and if we need a follow-up, there would be time for a follow-up. So maybe I can work through Carla to send out information and kind of compare calendars. And by all means, if you're not up for a budget workshop, don't feel like you have to be part of it, but we're inviting you if you want to be part of it.
I think the other thing that we wanted to talk about was just the general approach to marketing. There's print media, there's electronic, there's newspapers, there's billboards, there's all kinds of things we can do, and what's our general feeling on which media should we be going at, and kind of geographic, and having a discussion on that.
Well, and I've done some kind of comparing to other communities, especially tourism-based communities that are 5,000 population and below, and believe it or not, there are a lot of small towns like ours who specialize in tourism as a, kind of hang their hat on that as economic development. And so I've kind of looked at what their percentages are, how they break things down in terms of the areas of emphasis. And so I thought we could start with that as kind of a jumping off point. And really a lot of the things that we're doing fit into that. But it was good to see it played out in other communities, especially communities our size who specialize in tourism.
I think it's just good to have that general discussion about approaches and not get into the specifics of this ad or that ad, but generally how to do it. Okay, I think you wanted to talk a little bit about tourism volunteers.
Yes, and I sent Toby some information about this for the paper too, but I'm planning to revive the tourism volunteer program. Back some years ago, we used to have volunteers who would dress in costume and roam the streets and greet people, have their picture taken with people, point them, where's the church, where are the things to see, and just adding a little bit of atmosphere to their experience while they're here. And I have issued a call for volunteers during Jour de Fête weekend because certainly we can use more people during that time, and we'll look at maybe 2-hour windows of sign-up shifts, if you will. And so that will be going out, and then kind of based on how that works out, I'd like to continue that on an as-available basis for those who would be willing to be volunteers and sign up for some, maybe a half a day here and there on weekends in the future in terms of volunteering for the community. And maybe even if you don't have a costume and you're interested in it, we might be able to find you a costume too.
Very good. Last issue on new business was the August quarterly evening schedule. Every 3 months we hold one in the evening to see if we can get more public participation. We normally meet the third Friday. I think August 20th is a Tuesday night. After that, and I think the calendar's free on that date. I would propose we do Tuesday evening, August 20th, 7 o'clock. That's all right with y'all? Okay.
You said 7 p.m. Here.
7 p.m. here, August 20th. Okay, are there any committee reports, electronic, talked about a lot of things, print, got an update there. Nothing on tourism development as a resource at this point.
And I'd like to form a transportation committee, so if you're interested in participating in a transportation, kind of a focus group strategy, send me an email.
Is there any other new business to bring before the committee? If not, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Mike?
I'll
Make a motion
second.
to adjourn?
Dina, a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Nay. Thank you very much for your attendance today.
Hi, thank you for watching Channel 798.
Thank you for watching Channel 7 and 98.
Hi, thank you very much for watching Channel 798.